Hello and thank you for joining me today. I'm here in Kampala in Uganda to share a few thoughts from the Bible with you this morning. So the book of Judges introduces us to a character, a man named Micah. We don't hear too much about him, just a couple of chapters, but basically his mother presents him with a load of silver that she has consecrated to the Lord. And he takes some of it and, I assume, melts it down and makes it into household gods for him and his family. One day, a Levite passes by and Micah asks him to stay around. In Judges chapter 17, we read that Micah installed the Levite, and the young man became his priest and lived in his house. And Micah said, "Now I know that the Lord will be good to me, since this Levite has become my priest." Now, I found that ever so interesting, because although Micah had made these idols that he had set up in his house, he hadn't turned away from the Lord. In fact, I feel that he genuinely felt that the idols he'd created were a way to worship God. And yet from the books of the law earlier in the Bible, we know that God specifically stated that people were not to make images like this. I'm always a little bit surprised that the Levite didn't set him straight. You know, you'd think that he would have known the law a little bit better, but perhaps he was more interested in the paycheck that Micah was offering than sticking to the regulations laid down by Moses years before. But anyway, the whole story makes me realize that it is possible for our hearts to be completely in the right place, wanting to follow after God, wanting to know him more, wanting to live our lives to bring him glory. And yet, there can be parts of our lives that aren't quite right. And it can be so easy to overlook those things and say, well, yeah, this bit of my life might be not quite how God said that I should live, but I'm okay in most areas. So I'm just going to ignore that particular problem. It might not be anything as obvious as an idol set up on the shelf of your bedroom, but there can be so many other things. What about worry? How often do we say, God, I trust you with this thing, this situation, this person, whatever it may be, but then spend all day dwelling on it and worrying about it and panicking about it, forgetting that the Bible tells us not to be anxious, but to present our requests to God with prayer and thanksgiving. What about an overdependence on money or stuff? How often do you find your thoughts drifting to your bank account or to your salary, to what you could buy if you could afford it, to how you'd cope if you actually gave away a little bit of those savings that God's been kind of nudging you about that could be a real blessing to someone else? What about an unhealthy relationship? What about looking at something that leads you down a bad path? What about working yourself so hard? Even, dare I say it, serving so hard in church that you're not spending any time with God anymore. There are any number of things that can become the idol in the room. And we need to make sure that we aren't compartmentalizing those things, saying, well, it's okay this one time, or it's okay in this one area. It's not really doing any harm. Because if our lives are to be wholly devoted to God, then we can't be letting an idol share the throne of our hearts with Almighty God. One day, if you carry on reading this story in Judges, you find that Micah's household idols were stolen from him, and his personal Levite priest abandoned him for a better position, a bit of a promotion. Micah was left absolutely devastated, and he followed after the men who had stolen from him and pleaded with them. He said, "You took the gods I made and my priest and went away. What else do I have?" Isn't that so sad? What else do I have? You've taken everything from me. Everything is gone, and I have nothing left. And when we lose the things that are idols in our hearts, we can feel a little bit like that, I think. I've lost everything. Everything I held dear is gone. Everything that was important to me has been taken, and I have nothing left. What do I have now? Nothing. But if only Micah had really understood who God is, he would have known that he still had everything. God couldn't be stolen from him. And for us, even when we lose our stuff or our money or our jobs or people that we held dear, we don't need to say, what else do I have? Because if God is in his rightful place, if we are wholly devoted to him, then we have everything that we will ever need. It doesn't mean that it won't hurt. It doesn't mean that it won't be hard when we lose those things. But it means that if we truly recognize who God is, if God truly is on the throne of our hearts, if he is in his rightful place, if we recognize who he is, then we know that we won't ever be in a position where we're saying, what else do I have? Because we will still have God, and God is everything that we need. Thank you so much for joining me here today for this thought from the Bible. I'll be back on Friday with another video, so I will see you then.